I never believed in ghosts. Not truly. Not until the night I heard it speak my name, clearly, intentionally, inside my own home. Until then, I thought everything could be explained. Drafts, imagination, coincidences. But after what happened, I can't convince myself of anything. And I can't pretend it isn't real. It began in my family home, a modest 2-story house tucked into a quiet suburban street. From childhood, things were off. I remember nights waking up to floorboards creaking when no one was home, whispers so faint I could barely understand them, shadows stretching unnaturally across walls. My parents dismissed it all, calling it imagination, the house settling, or even the wind. But deep down, I knew better. I'd seen objects move. Small things at first. My toys rearranged, pencils on the desk knocked over. Later, larger items shifted. Doors slammed on their own. Chairs slid across the floor. Sometimes I'd feel a presence in the room, standing behind me, cold and heavy, and yet invisible. There was always a weight, pressing down, unrelenting. Even as a teenager, I tried to rationalize it. I became meticulous, checking rooms, doors, windows, every detail. But the unease never left me. The whispers grew louder in my mind, fragments of words I couldn't understand, yet somehow they felt deliberate, as if something, was trying to communicate. By the time I joined the Ontario Paranormal Investigation Society, OPIS, I had spent years in fear and skepticism intertwined. I thought joining a team of investigators would help me understand, to capture evidence, to finally rationalize the experience. I never expected the results. I never expected what would follow me. I remember the first night vividly. We set up cameras and audio recorders throughout the house. Thermal sensors lined the hallways, and microphones were stationed in every room. I placed my own recorder in my bedroom, near the corner where shadows always seemed to linger. I spoke into it, explaining my setup, trying to stay calm. Then I heard it. At first it was a whisper, barely audible. I froze. My heart raced, my skin prickled. I strained to listen, straining to convince myself it was just the wind or an equipment glitch. But it wasn't. The whisper repeated, this time clearer, deliberate. Sean. I stiffened. My friend Sean wasn't even in the room. I hadn't mentioned him. And yet, the voice spoke his name. Slowly, I realized the terrifying truth. Whatever this was, it was aware. It wasn't random noise. It wasn't static. It knew us. The rest of that night became a blur. Shadows seemed to shift unnaturally, stretching along walls. Every creak of the floorboards made my stomach drop. My cameras and recorders captured subtle movements in the corner of the room, shapes that seemed to move with intent. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The next week was worse. Each night the entity grew bolder. It wasn't content to whisper from the shadows. Objects moved on their own. Small things at first, pens, papers, cups, then larger items. Chairs shifted, doors slammed, drawers rattled. I could feel its presence even when I couldn't see it. One night, I woke to the temperature dropping drastically in my bedroom. My breath fogged the air. I pulled the blankets around me, shivering, but it was more than cold. It was a weight, pressing down on my chest, restricting my movements. Shadows coalesced into unnatural shapes across the walls. I felt something brush my shoulder. I jumped, spun around. No one was there. I pressed record on my digital recorder, hoping for some proof. Later, when I played back the audio, I could hear the whispers. Fragments of speech that weren't mine, sentences forming, responding to me. One voice said, "I've been waiting for you." At that moment, I realized I had invited something into my life that wasn't going away. I moved out for university, hoping a new space would break the connection. But the entity followed me. Within days, it began manifesting in my new apartment. Whispers returned, now louder and clearer, addressing me and my friends by name. I thought I had escaped. I was wrong. One night, my friend Sean came over to help me record evidence. We set up cameras, microphones, thermal sensors, every precaution we could think of. The apartment was silent at first. Then I felt it. A presence behind me, heavier than anything I'd ever felt. The shadows seemed to stretch, reaching for us. Then I heard it, clear and deliberate. Sean. My blood ran cold. Sean froze, staring at the empty room. The shadows moved unnaturally along the walls. One stretched toward us, dark, almost alive. I tried to leave, but the voice followed us. "You can't leave. You've awakened me." We fled, trembling, terrified. But I knew, deep down, it wasn't over. I became obsessed with recording the entity. Every night I left my equipment running. I wanted proof, wanted validation, wanted to understand. But every night, it communicated. Sometimes whispers formed sentences. Other times, the voice was cold, calm, intelligent, responding directly to questions I hadn't asked aloud. It wasn't just audio anymore. Shadows stretched unnaturally. Objects moved without explanation. Sometimes, I would feel a hand brush my shoulder as I sat alone at my desk. The fear consumed me. I barely slept. I barely ate. The entity had invaded my life completely. As the weeks went on, I began hallucinating. I would see faces in the corner of my eyes, hear conversations in empty rooms. Sometimes I saw Sean in my apartment when he wasn't there, speaking words that made no sense. I questioned my own sanity. Was the entity doing this? Or was my mind breaking under the pressure? Every reflection in mirrors became terrifying. I sometimes caught glimpses of something standing behind me or looming in shadows, watching. I would freeze, unable to breathe until it moved or disappeared. Finally, I decided to confront it. I set up one final recording session, cameras, mics, sensors, everything. I spoke aloud. "Show me. Let me see you." The response was immediate, not a whisper, not vague noises. A clear, commanding voice. "You've invited me in. I am always here." The room grew freezing cold. Shadows stretched unnaturally, converging toward me. My vision blurred. I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe. And then, silence. But it didn't leave. It lingered, watching, waiting, always aware. I haven't lived normally since that night. I moved back in with my parents temporarily, but the entity followed in small ways. Whispers in the quiet, shadows in peripheral vision. I live in fear of returning to my apartment. I live in fear of the recordings, which I sometimes hear in my dreams. I've accepted the truth. Whatever this is, it's intelligent. It's patient. It's aware. And it doesn't need to be invited. If you ever hear your name when you know you're alone, don't ignore it. Don't rationalize it. Don't pretend it's nothing. Whatever it is, it's watching, waiting. It knows you. If this story sent chills down your spine, hit that like button, subscribe for more true horror stories, and tell me in the comments, would you stay in your home if something followed you like this? Or would you run and never look back? Because sometimes the supernatural doesn't care what you want.